Hey guys, it's Alix.
And Kayla.
And we're married, not related, definitely codependent.
But in a cute way. And
we're back for another episode.
We got a juicy one today.
Do we?
We really do.
I think it's going to be good.
It's going to be so good, so long, so robust. Sounds like I'm about to say something dirty, but I'm not. That we're not going to do your turn to lead because it's just, we have a fat outline today.
We have a lot to get through.
We have probably just because like this person is 75 years old. So there's a lot to get into.
Yes.
And but before we do, I have to say thank you. I love you to everyone who's leaving comments, reviews, sending us DMs. I remember we've got a few messages and personal stories.
Yep.
Of people who have listened to the show and then come out because of it.
We got a few people say that to us, which is so cool.
And people from like teenagers all the way to
people in their 40s.
Yeah. And so it's just like the coolest thing in the world to push the gay agenda for a living.
Yeah.
We
love it.
We're just conservatives would be like, see, you are turning people gay. This is why we don't need more gay content, which I say, correct, we are.
We are.
You're welcome.
I think it's so great that just hearing us having these conversations is allowing people to maybe explore things within themselves that they've maybe never felt safe enough to do so, or, just maybe were too scared to look at certain parts of themselves. And now they're able to do that for the first time
and just
ever,
consider this other way of being potentially for them. And so, we love getting those stories. Thank you so much for telling them to us. It makes us feel like we're not just, we say this all the time, talking in our living room into the ethers, into a mic, wondering if anyone is listening. And also, if there's anyone in your life that you think could benefit from hearing any of these conversations, please send the episode to them. I know you think like, whatever, I'm just one person. Me sending the episode to one person isn't going to make a big deal. It really does. It sounds kind of like small potatoes, but it really makes a difference. So we love you. Thank you. Keep reviewing. Let's blow this shit up.
Let's dive in.
What
are we talking about?
Caitlyn Jenner.
Spicy.
Ooh. Okay, so I am excited about this one. And I guess right out of the way, because we're going to be referring to this person as they have personally not requested like, oh, refer to me this way or that way, but they have made a point to say in their own memoir, as well as in other interviews and everything, that they're like, I am Bruce. Bruce is Caitlyn. Caitlyn is Bruce. When I refer to myself in the past, sometimes I use he, him pronouns I call myself Bruce. Like he isn't somebody when he's speaking in that like Bruce form, somebody that sees that as a dead name. The way that a lot of trans people are like, don't ever say that name to me again. That is buried. I'm no longer that person. Caitlyn / Bruce doesn't feel that way. So particularly when we're talking about them in their earlier forms, when they are still Bruce, that's how we most likely will be referring to them, because that's how they refer to themselves in their own works of art. Mm-hmm. So just wanted to say that up top.
Yeah, I'm clear.
I know you're clear, but it's like some people can hear that and be like, I know that other people have covered this person. And even though Caitlyn has said that herself, they still won't refer to them as Bruce in the past because they're like, no, that's disrespectful. And I'm kind of more in the camp of like, well, if this person is...
This is how they refer to themselves.
They refer to themselves that it sounds even like their preference. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go more based on their preference for this individual person. I don't think they say, don't call me Caitlyn when I was Bruce. I don't think it's like a strong preference in that sense. But I mean, there's lots to criticize with Caitlyn Jenner. And in my opinion, that's just not necessarily one of them. No. So you'll hear us kind of referring to them as both depending on what point in the life we're at. What do you know about Caitlyn Jenner?
I mean,
just like high level. You do?
I think so.
Okay.
Like they were this amazing athlete. The greatest athlete of all time, right? At the Olympics that they were in the 70s. And, has had many marriages, many children, most renowned for marrying Kris Jenner.
Yes.
And, had Kylie and Kendall with Kris, helped raise the other Kardashians, was on Keeping Up with Kardashians. I mean, they've done a lot.
Yes.
I think I know a decent amount.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Just kind of like high level stuff. Okay. So they were born October 28th, 1949 in New York. They have 3 siblings, 2 sisters, 1 brother. And the way that Caitlyn describes it in her memoir, a lot of this will be kind of pulling from the memoir specifically, because that, as well as a lot of interviews that they've done, it's pretty much like the whole life is out there. So we might as well go based on that information and then kind of like the fans' response to it or critics' response to it. So according to Caitlyn, she experienced gender dysphoria really early on, like as young as 6 years old. Would try on her mom's clothes and then her sister's clothes and the makeup and, the shoes and all of that kind of stuff. So very early on, 6 years old, had an idea. Of course, they didn't have the language to know what that meant, but they did have the understanding that whatever I'm doing is kind of to be ashamed of. It's not something that I want to be caught doing. So there was enough awareness there to know like, ooh, this is not going to be received well by others, so I should hide it.
Yeah.
So it's like
there was like early shame.
Yeah, I was going to say the shame started early there, but without really knowing why.
Why? Yeah.
Like why even nowadays when these conversations are so much more talked about, still it's like just having the language that young to be able to express yourself clearly is near impossible, So they were also diagnosed with dyslexia when they were in school. And this just kind of comes up briefly, sometimes like in some other career points. So they really went full force into kind of like being an athlete. And they were doing all the things with all the balls, the footballs, the basketballs.
Everything.
And
Bruce was just like an amazing athlete.
Right.
At everything.
Yeah. And because of that, because of running in those crowds, sort of naturally popular, but always kind of describe themselves as feeling more like an outsider, which they attribute to the gender dysphoria specifically. Whereas outwardly, nobody would really be able to tell that they felt that way.
I feel like they always described it as like Bruce, even though it was like very athletic and like handsome and popular, always just felt different and almost like chose at times to just like be a lone wolf because they just felt so different.
Yeah, just kind of like kept everyone at an arm's length. Probably because they didn't feel super connected to themselves.
Yeah.
So ended up getting I think it was a full ride, but got a scholarship for football to a college and at that time blew out their knee. And so then that's when they transitioned into the decathlon, which is, I thought that maybe this is really stupid to say. Is the decathlon part of track and field?
Yeah.
It's
like 10.
I know 10.
It's like 10 different track and field things, like throwing the javelin, the shot put, like there's like a running component to it. So there's like kind of like what people can compete on individually for track and field events.
But
it's like
together.
10 events that you compete on. And then like you take your best scores from all of those and then ultimately.
And that's supposed to be that indication of like best athlete in the world.
Because most people compete at like one individual track and field event and they're competing across like all of them or 10 of them. Yeah.
So not long after graduating from college, Bruce qualified for the first Olympics in 1972 and placed 10th overall, which was pretty remarkable considering they definitely didn't have proper Olympic training. And just kind of, to be a debut athlete for such a big event, it was, people were like, whoa, who is this person? And so in between that time of 72 to the 76 Olympics, which is when he won the gold and everything. So those 4 years in between is when Bruce was like, I'm going all in. I'm going to train like that's going to become my entire life's purpose in those 4 years. So they kind of later went on to say that in doing so, it was really just like this great distraction for the gender dysphoria because it was like this ever-present thing that was there in them. So it's like when you're training that hard, you can imagine it's like you're so occupied and so exhausted. You don't really have time to feel anything else, let alone like look inward.
Do anything else.
Anything else.
That's it. Yeah.
Exactly. So in in Caitlyn's book, she says, well, yeah, that was actually part of the reason. It wasn't as much even about the competition or being an athlete. It was really all came back to just trying to quiet the noise of gender dysphoria, which I thought was kind of interesting, you know, because I feel like most Olympic athletes, it's like, it's the athletic part, the competition. It's like, that's their biggest dream. That's what they've always wanted. And Caitlyn's like, no, it actually had nothing to do with that. So anyways, I thought that was kind of interesting. So in 76, they go to Montreal for the Olympics, and it was kind of that perfect storm of everything going on in the world with like the Red Scare and Vietnam and Watergate and Nixon. And then also major networks are now starting to really kind of like highlight specific athletes and make this whole story around them, with the Olympics being this really unifying thing for the nation of like, we're going through these hard times, and now we're going to really lean on these athletes to make us feel unified as America or give us hope in America, you know? And so that was all happening when Bruce was competing. So when he won the gold, it was like so much projection onto him, you know, of like, you are America's golden boy. Like, we owe you everything.
America's sweetheart.
America's sweetheart, because he was married at the time to Christy, who he had met in college. They married in 72. So she was with Bruce the whole time that they were training for the Olympics. So, and I guess she was also really beautiful. Like you said, he was super handsome. So everyone's like, oh,
this golden couple.
Golden couple.
Best looking couple in America.
Yeah. So it was kind of just like that perfect, because that doesn't happen with it's like, even nowadays, we don't even really know most track and field athletes. They're not these like main player athletes that we keep track of as much in the Olympics. It depends.
They are. I mean, they can be.
They can be, but
for sure.
You know, it's like
if we have a big star.
Exactly. It's like, but sometimes there's just this, I'm like, is it a planetary thing? Like, I don't know what happens, but it's like everything just aligns that makes someone be not just like a little bit remarkable, but explode into this fame. And that's really what happened in the Bruce Jenner Olympic gold kind of era. So like I said, he was married to Christy. They got married in 72, and they had 2 children in 1978 and 1980. So one of their kids, they had a son who they named Bert, and a daughter they named Cassandra. They also call her Casey. So we obviously, in the lore episodes, we're talking about people's controversy. So this was kind of like one of the earlier controversies, is that Bert's namesake came from Bruce Jenner's youngest brother.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
And his young brother had recently graduated. I think it was just from high school. And because Bruce had all these sponsorships and everything, he had already won the gold. He was living out in California, and his parents wanted to send the brother out to California so that he could get residency and then go to a college in California to go live with Bruce for a little while. They came out, the brother came out to stay with Bruce, and had borrowed this, I think it was like a Porsche that had been
one of Bruce's cars.
But it was like a fancy car that had been only lent to him through a sponsor. It had something to do with the whole sponsorship thing. And really tragically, Bert crashed it and died. And obviously that is not Bruce's fault, right?
No.
It's like, yes, it was his car. It's just a tragedy. But the kind of controversy that happened around it, not as much at the time, but in the memoir, because Caitlyn writes about this in the memoir. And she's like, yeah, you know, I just had to kind of accept, like, it wasn't his, like, his time was up, you know? And people were like, that seems a little callous to just be like, oh, you're just fine with the fact that your brother died. Like, you don't have to blame yourself.
Weird way to grieve. Yeah. And definitely, yeah, they also said, you know, like, they had to come to terms that it wasn't their fault, but it was just like, this person's time has come, essentially.
Yeah.
Weird way to describe things, especially with your brother.
And then it's also one of those, we talked about this in the Caroline Calloway episode, though, where it's like, there's no one right way to grieve. And even though Caitlyn wrote this literally decades after Bert's death, so one would assume you've already processed it and everything, but it's like, who knows what kind of mental health support you've had in the meantime? Have you really? I don't know. It's like, you don't always phrase things perfectly. That, like,
just in watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians and like watching this is like Bruce's personality at the time, like the interviews I've seen with him from like before becoming Caitlyn, everything, and just hearing about some of the experiences of his life, he like really struggles with empathy and compassion, if you will. And at times I always just wondered like if he was like a little Asperger's-y or something, like because he really struggles to like connect with emotions and has this like really kind of like a neurotic side to them. And
wait, so can we just pause? You watched Keeping Up with the Kardashians?
I've definitely like seen some episodes like early on. And his personality in that show was always like,
and it even stuck out to you at the time.
At the time, yeah, like he'd be like, you know, just he felt disconnected from people, like struggled to connect with others. Yeah. So that's like one piece of it, I think. Another piece is just like, okay, so now he's going to go off and do his own thing. He'd be out like flying remote control planes or driving remote control cars, kind of like doing like nerdy techie things, but by himself. And then the third piece is just like, and you'll see this come up through the rest of the book, is just he really struggles to have empathy for other people. And I don't know, those things to me always stuck out as like maybe like on the spectrum to some degree.
I have no idea, obviously, what it takes to diagnose someone with anything. But the way that my kind of conclusion I've come to after going through all of this is more, I don't know if it's as much about like a lack of empathy as much as it's like you're just so good at being the victim. Nothing is ever your fault. Wow. To where it's like, it's like, I don't know if you have a problem actually accessing and feeling empathy, or if it's just like a refusal to go there, because then that will force you to take some accountability for your shit, you know, which is like not the greatest, because some people will be like, oh, why did Caitlyn turn into such a shitty person when they transitioned? And other people are like,
they were always that way.
Did you meet Bruce? Because they have always been not the greatest. Like, definitely a horrible parent. So this is a perfect example. So Christy and him, their marriage kind of starts being on the rocks and everything at a certain point. So they got married in 1972, and so it was so about 8 years later. And so they kind of separated for a little bit. That was when he met his next wife, Linda, but he still wasn't all the way separated from Christy yet. He was kind of in that like back and forth phase. And so I don't think anything happened with him and Linda right away. And when he was still in the back and forth with Christy, she got pregnant from Bruce with the second child, Cassandra or Casey. And then they decided to fully separate. Neither of them knew she was pregnant yet. Then she found out, I'm pregnant, goes to tell Bruce. And Bruce is like, well, yeah, you should definitely get an abortion. Okay, so it's like, yes.
And his logic was like, well, this child deserves to like be raised by a mother and a father, and we know that we're separating, and therefore like we shouldn't put this child through that situation. But also that's pretty harsh to just be like,
right,
I'm not going to, and also said like, I'm not going to financially support you, and I'm not going to raise this child, so therefore you should get an abortion.
If I don't want this child, then why should I financially support them like that? So by the way, definitely not the first person to say this to a pregnant woman. You know, this happens all the frickin' time behind closed doors. My issue with it more is that then you went on to say it publicly. You said it in your book. And also Christy said it as well at the time in an interview, which I think is her bad too. Like, because your child, who's now a full adult, of course,
now knows that their dad didn't want them.
It's like, it's bad enough that you said that to the mother when she's pregnant, but now that person, Cassandra, should never know that, ever. I don't care if she's 40 years old. She shouldn't know that.
No, that's so sad.
Yeah.
But I also think there's something else that we missed, though, is that Bruce told Christy during their marriage about the gender dysphoria that he was having. Mm-hmm. So she was aware.
Yes.
But at that time, like if we put ourselves in the 70s when they were together, like I imagine, I don't know. First of all, he doesn't say like how he describes it. Like I'm curious like what that conversation was like. Was he like, I'm
trans? I doubt it.
He was probably like, sometimes I like to like put on dresses and dress up as a woman. Like, but in the 70s, you know,
what does that mean?
Yeah, if I'm Christy, I'm like, what does that mean? And what does that mean for us? And how does that impact our relationship? And I don't think she was thinking, you want to actually be a woman.
Right.
I think, you know.
Well, I don't know if Bruce knew what he wanted. You know, I think it was a big question mark for everyone. And by the way, of course, I'm not going to miss that nugget of information. Okay.
Okay. I didn't know.
No, because this is something, spoiler alert, he tells all of his wives, according to Bruce, at least. So, and this is something that Christy also confirms in later interviews, that she says, yeah, Caitlyn or Bruce, you know, they told me this. And Caitlyn said Christy was the first person I ever told. And Christy confirmed it publicly. And this was later, once Caitlyn was out and everything. And Christy had said, like, you know, I wish them the best. They actually are still kind of amicable. They're like friendly and supportive and everything, which I kind of thought was surprising because of the whole abortion child thing. And then the fact that Bruce just is gone immediately and has literally zero part of those two kids' lives.
Yeah, does not contribute, does not raise these kids whatsoever. Just totally moves on as if he was never married and never had kids.
Yeah, so they officially divorced in 1981, which was just cited as, you know, like growing apart, probably filed as, what is it, like irreconcilable differences or whatever. But Caitlyn later says that it was from the gender identity struggle. And Christy agrees with that. Like that was a part of it. We don't really get a lot of like exactly what was and maybe they don't remember the exact conversation, you know? Who knows if it was like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what this means. Because at the time, too, it's like, did they even have the option of fully transitioning?
I don't know.
I don't know what all the options were at the time, but it was a part of the dissolution of their marriage. So, but yeah, Christy has gone on to say that they really support Caitlyn's transition and she was really proud of her honesty and bravery and everything, which I thought was pretty nice, all things considering. So then Bruce meets Linda Thompson. What do you know about Linda? Anything?
I don't know. I know she's a bombshell. Okay. And I know they met at the Playboy Mansion. Because Bruce was kind of like living it up as the golden boy at the Playboy Mansion post-divorce with Christy.
Yeah, I don't know about the 80s, but even in our time in college, the Playboy Mansion, that was like a place where people partied. And it was like kind of sleazy, but it was very A-list as well.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it wasn't, I don't know, it was like the place to be. So anyways, Linda was actually an ex-girlfriend of Elvis Presley. Fun fact. She was a singer, an actress. So she was very much in that kind of like Hollywood circuit as well. And Jenner says that it was love at first sight. Christy kind of, or sorry, not Christy, but there's so many women in this.
Yep.
Linda describes it similarly. And they have 2 kids. Do you know which of their kids are?
Brody and Brandon?
Yes.
Brandon?
Yes. So I'm not by the way, as much as I love trash reality TV, I was never a Kardashians fan. I got into trash reality once we got together.
Yeah.
So that was way after the Kardashians like big kind of peak. Right now, even just in doing the research for this episode, it's like, yeah, there's some interesting stuff there. There's obviously so much lore within the Kardashian web.
Oh, yeah.
I have tried watching the show a few times, like the newest show. I find it super boring.
It's the whole show is like that. It's all boring.
So boring. So I've never really got the hype. It would be on sometimes, like I was in a sorority in college, so it would be on some of the girls. So I've seen it-ish, but I don't actually know if I've even watched a whole old episode all the way through. It's like I kind of remember Bruce in the way that you're talking about, where he's just sort of like in the corner and like shouting things from the side.
He's just kind of like bumbling. Everyone kind of ignores him.
Yeah, he's just kind of there.
He's just kind of like a bit weird, to be honest, like a bit odd.
I mean, you're also in a house full of stars. They're taking up all the space, you know? And I know he was a star in his own right at the time, but not compared to the girlies, you know? Like they're in full force. So yeah, anyways, I know who Brody was because everyone knows who
Laguna
Brody.
Beach, the hills, everything.
He's a babe. So he marries Linda because she gets pregnant. And this is also what I think is funny. As we know today, Caitlyn Jenner is very openly Republican, conservative. So it's like, and they kind of pride themselves on these more traditional values and everything. And it's like, but abortion is okay. But like sex before marriage is okay. But like getting pregnant before marriage, it's like all of these things are okay. I don't know. It's just very convenient, I think, to where you can have traditional, strict values about some things, but if you mess up and, and deviate from those lines, then it's fine. It's like, okay, whatever. So anyways, Linda gets pregnant and Bruce is like, well, we have to get married. We got to do the right thing. So they have the 2 kids. They're born in 81 and 83. And Linda also writes a memoir that came out in, I don't actually know when it came out, but it came out later. And she also says that Bruce, at the time, now Caitlyn, confided in her in their marriage about gender dysphoria as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think even before they got married, like she was aware.
Really?
I think so. Yeah.
Why do you think that?
I think I heard that. Because I think basically like after Christy, that he told both the next wives before they even got married that this was a thing.
Yeah, maybe it was before the official marriage, but yeah. So the reason that this is interesting is that a huge kind of controversy surrounding Caitlyn Jenner is it true that Kris knew or not? Because this is something that they both pretty vehemently disagree on publicly. And it's like, why would Bruce tell his 2 other wives who he dated but was married to a much shorter amount of time than Kris Jenner, who he was with for like 25 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
And
not tell Kris. Also at the time, there were a lot of rumors. At the time around like when him and Kris Jenner started dating, there was tons of rumors already about him that he was trans. So I also find it hard to believe that it's like she definitely heard those rumors because it was all over Hollywood, but he never told you, but told his previous 2 wives. There's just no way that's true. Kris Jenner, you're lying.
Well, so after Bruce divorces Linda, then he's like, I'm going to transition. This is in the 80s.
That is wild.
Which is so honestly admirable, I think.
Very courageous.
It's similar to what we've talked about, just like with the earlier you come out, even just as gay, I'm not even talking about trans, but like the earlier you come out, the less rights that you have. In my opinion, that's more courageous because it's like you are stepping
the rights, but the societal like pressures and
everything,
judgments are so much more intense.
Yeah, but it's just like in general, you're less protected.
Oh, for sure.
And so it's like you're just stepping into this even greater unknown. So yeah, Caitlyn, at the time Bruce was saying they wanted to fully transition by the time they were 40. So this was in 89 at this point. And started going on hormones. Because of the hormones, started developing breasts, did a few facial surgeries, got a nose job, and then started doing laser hair removal of all of
the whole body.
No, it wasn't the whole body. It was the beard. So like everything on the face and then the chest.
The chest, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the legs as well.
I don't know, not yet.
Arms. I thought they did it on their whole body.
Not yet. I think that happens later on. But yeah, they write about this. Caitlyn writes about this in her book, saying that when they started the hormones, that she felt immediately better, which I thought was really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, because, hormones don't always make you feel great.
No.
So, but was just kind of describing it as like this constant noise or void or this thing I was trying to avoid or consuming all of me. And once I started the hormones, all of a sudden felt very just like at peace, aligned, their kind of truest self. So keep in mind, this is in 89. This is all before Kris Jenner. That's wild. I did not know that until I was looking into this, that like you are fully starting to transition. You're finding doctors for the surgeries. Like you are starting to transition.
Mm-hmm.
You are, I don't think at the time people were calling themselves trans, but like you're identifying as, what was the identification back then? Transsexual?
I think transsexual, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I was just like, whoa, that I had no idea of that. So anyways, then Kris enters the picture.
But Bruce is on hormones for 5 years before they meet Kris.
Yeah.
This isn't like, I just started taking hormones and now I met Kris. It's like, no. He was on the hormones for 5 years.
Yeah. And they had both recently gone through divorces. So as we know, Kris was married to Robert Kardashian. He represented OJ. He was OJ's defense attorney. So Kris had just divorced Robert and Bruce had just divorced Linda in the last couple of years. And it's funny because I had to like go back. I was like, wait, didn't they both say this about Linda as well? Where it was like, it was love at first sight. And the way that they both describe it is just like, oh, it's this magical love at first sight moment. So what I wasn't totally clear on, because I've kind of read different things, is that Caitlyn will say, I think they were kind of describing it in this metaphor of like standing on the edge of this cliff when they're in this whole transition process and about to take that final kind of leap of like, I am a woman. I'm assuming, and like maybe more publicly dressing as, I don't know exactly what that means. But even before, I think it was right before they met Kris that they had that kind of change of mind. Like, I can't do it. It wasn't because of Kris though.
No, it was right before.
It was because the way that he described it was his children. Yeah. That it was like, oh, what is this going to do to, which is kind of funny because I'm like, you haven't even been in most of their lives at this point. So that's what I mean. I'm like, I feel like Caitlyn feels empathy, but I don't know. Like
I think they just got to that point where it was like, okay, I either like fully jump off the cliff now and like become a woman and, present myself as a woman, or I don't. And
got cold feet.
He got cold feet and decided not to. And because he had been on hormones for 5 years, he had started developing breasts and then ultimately had to get a breast reduction surgery.
Mm-hmm. So met Kris very soon after this moment, because I was like, was it because of Kris that they changed their No. But I think it was all that was in a very tight time frame.
It was, yeah.
So met Kris, and Kris, of course, we all know Kris Jenner. She doesn't need an introduction. She is the most famous momager of all time. People call her an evil genius or just a plain genius, whichever you prefer. If there's one thing that she knows, it's how to see talent in someone, So she saw that in Bruce, where she's like, whoa, there's a lot of untapped resources going on here. Because at the time, Bruce's career had kind of fizzled out. It was like sort of washed up, oh yeah, that guy, what's he doing?
Yeah.
Like no hard feelings, no big controversy, but just kind of like nothing
really going on.
And Kris is like, yeah, we're going to do something about that, sweetie. So this is where they made that really magical pairing right off the bat, which eventually turned into the Kardashians ultimately, because it really all started with the Bruce Jenner name, where he was the talent and Kris was the mastermind behind it, just kind of puppeteering, being like, yep, now lift your right arm, now you're left, now you're right, and Bruce is like, okay. I feel like he just was going along for the ride. But he had the household name, but he didn't really, he was not the brains of the operation. We'll just say that. We know that was Kris Jenner. So it starts with just like infomercials and doing these motivational speaker gigs. And then they both kind of grow together as a couple. They did these like workout videos together.
Amazing.
Which were very 80s coded. I think it was the early 90s at this point, but they were still like 80s kind of attire. And they were just kind of like, and Kris Jenner, she wasn't somebody that came from nothing. Like she was in the Hollywood circuit too.
Oh yeah, she had a huge network already.
She had a network. She had, like upper middle class. She wasn't somebody that was like hard knocks by any means, but they were nothing like how you know them today. They weren't as big as they know it today. So she really kind of grew the whole Kardashian brand and frame. Some would argue off the back of Bruce Jenner, which a lot of people be like, no, that's not true. It's literally called the Kardashians. But at least, and this is the way that Caitlyn writes about it in her book, which is like, ooh, is that a dig at Kris? Or is this what really happened? Because Kris will say, it was all my idea, which we know she is the mastermind. She is the brains behind all of their operations. But Caitlyn Caitlyn had written, oh yeah, one day we were watching the Osbournes and I kind of noticed their quirky family dynamic. And I was looking around thinking like, oh, we have this crazy family dynamic of this blended family. Like we could do this. Mm-hmm. So Caitlyn's kind of saying like, it was actually my idea. And then Caitlyn also says in her book of, you know, when we went into the meeting and whoever the producer, whoever they were pitching it to was like, I don't really get it. Like what's the premise of this show? We just, whatever, Bruce Jenner is in it. And it was like, he was the selling point. That's kind of his claim. So I don't know. Like, what do you think about that?
I mean, the Kardashians, they weren't anybody.
Well, Kim was a closet organizer. Okay, bite your tongue.
There was nothing happening for them at that point. You know, they were nobodies at that time. And I think it's true that like this was built off of Bruce Jenner's name.
It definitely got their foot in the door, I would say, you know, but it's not what kept, as you said, on the show, he was kind of just there, kind of a weirdo a little bit, like not this prominent character. So it's not what has given them the longevity, but it seems like it kind of gave them the jump start. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting. And yeah, so gets the breasts reduced, closes the door fully on the transition. Obviously, like everything with the OJ trial happens, and that's kind of neither here nor there in Bruce/Caitlyn's story necessarily, other than when Caitlyn writes about it later, says like, I knew that OJ was abusive. I hated that guy, you know, whereas like when Kris writes about it, she's kind of more like, I don't know, I wish that we knew. And other friends have had very split opinions about that. So it is something that people are critical of, where it's like, so you're saying you did know he was abusive and you never tried to help this woman, you know? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I would imagine it was probably obvious that he was not the greatest guy, OJ, you know, but we'll never really know. So in 95 and 97, he has Kendall and Kylie with Kris. Mm-hmm. And This is something that I know is talked about on the show. Did you ever see any of the episodes with the stepkids like Brody or anybody? Yeah. You did? Mm-hmm. What do you think the dynamic looked like?
I don't know. I think there was a time when they were all like close, and then there was a time when they weren't. That's kind of like what I remember was like there was a time when Brandon and Brody were like more included, and then there was a time later when they stopped being kind of included is what it seemed like, but I don't really know why or what happened.
Yeah, so that is also something that him and Kris kind of dispute about in the media, is Caitlyn saying, and this is one of the victim things again, where the way that Caitlyn describes it is like, Kris had all the power, I had no autonomy, like it was her checking, like she was the breadwinner, she was in control of everything. And at a certain point, she said she didn't want my other kids around. Like she just wanted it to be our family, you know, the Kardashians and the Jenners. And Kris, as well as I think some of the girls too, were like, that never happened. And also like you had a car, you still had a credit, like you were not literally this like starving housewife at home who had no freedom. You definitely could have still had a relationship with your kids. Yeah. And it seems kind of like you're pinning that on Kris to be like, well, I wasn't a bad dad. I just wasn't allowed to be the dad in the way that I wanted to. And it's like, really?
I mean, no one can stop you from
Nobody
being a
can
parent.
stop you. But that's what I mean, where it's like this, you just feel so bad for yourself all the time that you don't ever take responsibility.
Yeah. I mean, everything I've seen from Brandon and Brody is just that like Bruce just wasn't around and didn't want to be around.
Yeah, and it's even something that Brody tries to confront Bruce on the show, being like, I just feel like you weren't around. And Bruce is like, you know, just totally shuts it down. So I don't know. Like this has now been a common complaint.
I think it's a thing. I think Bruce just does not take accountability for the fact that he was not a present father in any of his kids' lives except for Kylie and Kendall.
Well, yes. And it's like Kylie and Kendall, that was the most involved Bruce was. But also as soon as they transitioned, that relationship totally changed again. And it's like you were there in the whole, pretty much like their whole life, raising them. That was the most involved you ever were in any of your kids' lives. But then immediately separate, it's like you aren't there for them. That is a common complaint because also the Kardashian girls, they were very young when him and Kris got together.
I know. He like raised Khloe practically because Khloe was so young.
Because Robert Kardashian, if you don't already know this, probably do, but he passed away a long time ago when the girls were pretty young. So it was like their dad died. They also have this stepdad figure in their life. Probably even if their dad didn't die, he would still be an important figure in their life. For sure. You raised them. And this was a common complaint they had even on the show, is like, you just feel emotionally distant. Like you're not here. Like you just kind of come in to lecture us about certain things, but you're not like here. You're not fully present.
He's not like a connected figure. Like Kris is like involved and connected to each one of her kids. Like that's very obvious. Like maybe
to a fault.
Yeah, they're all kind of like that, all the Kardashian girls. But like Bruce was not that way at all. You can just tell that they struggle to connect with other people in general.
Yeah. And just on a side note about Kris, because this is something I heard recently, because I know that it's like, I don't know why the hell we're still talking about Kris, or not Kris's, but might as well be Kris's, Kim's sex tape. And like, is that the thing that made them famous? Is it not? Did they produce it? And there was these accounts coming out saying that like it was fully produced, like they had to shoot it 3 times and Kim had glam for it. Like
it was fully produced and
Kris was there.
Oversaw it.
She was like, "You're doing great, sweetie. Bend over."
And then released it.
A little to the right. I'm like, oh, that's too involved. Okay. I would take Bruce over Kris any day in that regard.
I don't know. I think Kim would take Kris over Bruce and take $1 billion to the bank.
I know Kim would, but I'm just saying for me, I'm not trying to have sex in front of my mom.
No.
Call me crazy, but what? So yeah, Caitlyn kind of describes this disconnection that so many viewers could see, that the girls could see, that the world could see as it being a part of their gender dysphoria, where it's like, yeah, I, again, was like lost in this void. Or when you're constantly consumed by this one big thing, then it can feel hard to connect to other people. Do you think that that's a cop-out, or do you think that's real? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's real in the sense that, like, yeah, I think when you're not connected to yourself, it can be really hard to connect to other people, and that can be really isolating. But I also think that, like, you chose to be a parent to 10 kids, but then not actually be a parent. That's like, both things can be true at the same time. And like, you have to take accountability for the fact that you weren't a good parent.
But also my question is like, what's the excuse now? You've been out now for 10 years.
Yeah, that's my thing, is like their personality has been consistent since they've been out to before. That's why my thing is like, I think there's something deeper going on, because they just don't seem to be able to connect with other people in general, which is why I think that they're somewhat on the spectrum.
Or if it's just like you've been so consumed with shame since you were so young, since you're 6, you're essentially in the closet, which the closet, as we know, is a symbol of shame. So it's like, are you just so consumed with shame that you literally can't look at yourself not literally in a mirror, but I'm saying like, when you look at yourself honestly, that includes your faults and your shortcomings and your flaws, and like being able to own that. If you have confidence, I feel like it takes confidence to have accountability. If you don't have confidence, then it's like you feel so ashamed almost of what you've done that you're like, you can't handle it. You can't handle looking at the truth or something.
I don't know. I think they've struggled with all relationships their whole life.
Yeah.
Until this day. Friendships, being in relationships with their kids. Like that's a sign of a deeper issue going on. Not just like, gender dysphoria, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, it's confused. It's like, I agree that it's like two things can be true at once. But then what's the reason now? If your gender has been now affirmed and you are out publicly, then like, why do you still have distance? Even though I know that they say oh, we're good now. But it's like, are you? Because you're not close by any means. And even in writing
I think they're only close with Kylie and that's it.
I think there's even been complaints there where it's like they were absent for a while post-transition.
Yeah.
And Caitlyn's book came out in 2017. So it was kind of a while ago at this point, but also not that long ago. And it's like, you're still victimizing yourself in 2017.
Yeah.
So on the show itself, when Bruce was still Bruce, fans were also critical of him then, partially for what you're talking about, this being like, oh, a little bumbling, kind of there, kind of nothing. But on a deeper level, people would call him sexist a lot, misogynist a lot, because he was constantly being like, cover up. Like, why does everything have to be so sexy? Like, have some respect for yourselves. There are times that he even had called some of the girls overweight or like talked about their bodies in ways that, regardless, it's just like nobody should be talking about you like that, let alone your dad, you know? So he did have a lot of criticism on the show as well for that. And yeah, it was like also very much wanting these traditional gender roles within the house of like, clearly had a problem with Kris having the power, like seemed to kind of complain about that a lot. And not just, okay, I would like also some more autonomy, but I can understand, I guess, like how that might feel emasculating. But then it's like, but no one's also stopping you. Like, do something about it. I don't know. I don't feel that bad for you.
No. He also seemed really content with like letting Kris take charge of the household, their business, everything.
You're like, very passive.
Very passive and just wanted to kind of do his own thing.
But then would complain at the same time because it was like, oh, but this isn't fair. And like the implication was more like the man should kind of be running the house. Like it shouldn't be this way. So anyways, people, you know, he also would say things about like, oh, I'm in this house full of women and it's like full of estrogen and just kind of making comments that people would sometimes accuse him of being sexist or misogynist. And so these are all things that happened on the show, pre-transition. You're old-fashioned, you're judgmental, you're not emotionally available, you're obviously not the greatest parent. Like these are all things that happened pre-transition. And in 2007, his daughter Cassandra, the one that he said shouldn't have been born, had a wedding. Bruce was not invited, which when Caitlyn writes about it in the book, she's like, yeah, I mean, I get it. I guess I shouldn't have been invited. And even still, it's like, I don't know. It just feels kind of whiny, the way that they write about stuff. It's like, do you not remember however many 100 pages before you said that this person shouldn't exist? Why would they have you at their wedding? You know?
Yeah, and then you've made no effort with them ever since.
Ever.
Why would you deserve to be at their wedding?
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just like, Bruce kind of sucks.
Yeah.
You know? So now it's like, I don't know why. And this is where I think so much of what, especially the queer community, knows about Caitlyn Jenner, where they're like, oh, she's this huge disappointment. But I'm like, what did you expect when they started as
Bruce?
Right. Like, already didn't have the best integrity. Like you said, very passive, just kind of rolls over, takes it. Like you have no chutzpah, you know?
They got nothing going on.
Yeah.
You were a great athlete. That was it.
And that was so long ago.
And you're like not a great person.
But you also even said you didn't even really care about being an athlete. That was just connected to quieting that noise of gender. So it's like, I don't know. Anyways, when him and Kris end up separating, which was, I think, 2014, then the way that Caitlyn describes it is now she has her own house in Malibu. So, you know, the Kardashian house is obviously chaotic. It is full of a lot of people, a lot going on. And now they finally had space and privacy to like really explore a little bit more. Because also Bruce has not been single for longer than like 5 seconds. So you have never had space to, and now a little bit more remote, it's like you're able to wear the clothes, to like experiment in those ways. And that's when Bruce decided like, yeah, I need to come out. So do you remember the whole trachea surgery thing?
No.
So this was like before Bruce had come out as Caitlyn, and TMZ had basically caught Bruce coming, I don't know if it was coming out or going into getting the trachea shaving. So it's like something that,
like the Adam's apple?
Yeah, you can like shave it down. so that it's less prominent. Some trans women do that. And yeah, TMZ had caught them either coming in or out of the surgery. I don't know which one. And Bruce at the time was like, please don't air this. Like, I have not told my kids yet. Because there's like no other reason you get that surgery. You know what I mean? This isn't like, oh, I just wanted to laser my beard off because I don't want to shave anymore. Like, some you can kind of make excuses around. This, it's like, there's only one reason you're doing that. And he literally had called the head of TMZ because of course he knows who and he's like, please don't air it. And they still did. So this is like now when speculation is in full force. Like, oh my gosh, is Bruce transitioning? And the whole world is talking about it. He hasn't even been able to talk to his family about it. And then now Caitlyn goes on the Diane Sawyer interview, which is kind of this, I don't know if it's famous or infamous, but, you know, a well-known interview.
Yep.
And tells the world that they're trans. And this was like a really big moment just in kind of history. Because again, transness, this is only 10 years ago. It's still, there was a lot of question marks. You know, like people are like, what?
There were not that many people out as trans in 2015.
Especially in like that kind of platform, right? No. So yeah, and I don't know if in the interview, Caitlyn had said like, I am trans. The clips that we watched, I never heard her say that.
I mean, first of all, they even call it like the Bruce Jenner interview at the time. So it's like the whole like, I am Caitlyn Vogue shoot hadn't happened yet. Or like Call Me Caitlyn or whatever. Yeah, the Vanity Fair.
And, it was coupled with that.
But Diane Sawyer did ask like, so are you a woman? And Bruce is like, I guess, yes, I am a woman, you know? And so I think that is coming out as trans. If you're saying like he at the time was like, my soul is a woman. Right.
So they were coming, but I'm saying I didn't know if they used the words like,
I don't know that they they just said I'm a woman.
Right. And I don't even know if that language again was there as much at that time.
It was, yeah.
I know the word trans was, but it's like what I took from the interview is it felt too soon in Caitlyn's, it was like she didn't know how to describe things yet, is what it felt like. Mm-hmm. And it felt like a lot. And I understand why she did it, because it's like you needed to, especially if TMZ is catching all the, you know, and like you just kind of want to like put it all out there. But it felt like there was still a lot of question marks that she was kind of navigating.
For sure.
You know? And yeah, so it was kind of,
it was like announcing that they were going to start their transition. Yeah.
Yeah. And because there was like this photo of Bruce and Caitlyn was like, yes, this is me and that is her, you know, like trying to say like me and Bruce are the same person. And that is kind of when it started of like, yeah, you can still call me Bruce. I still feel like Bruce sometimes. Like that's what I mean. There was kind of a lot of, it wasn't super clear yet, but I think it was because maybe she wasn't super clear yet.
Agree.
Which I do have sympathy for, honestly. For sure. Like that would be, think about like when you first come out.
Trying to navigate coming out to the world. That is wild.
To anyone, even just on a smaller scale. It's like when I came out and some people in my family
don't have all the answers.
Being like, are you gay? Are you bi? Like, what are you? What does this mean? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, you just don't have all the answers. It takes time.
Yeah. So then doing that on this global scale is a lot of pressure. And the other thing that I thought was really interesting about the interview is because Diane is like, you know, are you gay? And Caitlyn's like, no. Like I kind of almost laughed at it like, oh God, I'm not gay, you know, as if that was a bad thing to be. I'm like, okay, come on, really?
I know.
And then it's like, as far as I know, I'm a heterosexual. I've only ever hooked up with.
I've only ever been with women.
I didn't say hooked up, but only ever been with women. And
but
I'm
it's like, you're a woman now. So
you just said you are
gay. And Diane Sawyer is trying to like navigate that with Caitlyn. And Caitlyn's like
not
getting it or not wanting to get it, you know, because like basically Diane Sawyer is trying to say like, do you like men or do you like women?
Yeah.
And Caitlyn's just like not getting the question.
Which again, maybe it's because it's not something she had fully gone into. Like she might have not had the answer yet.
She kept saying like, this isn't about sex. This is about like my gender. And the way I took it was like, maybe you are interested in both, but you're not ready to say that yet because that feels like really scary. And that's why you don't want to talk about your sexual attractions. You only want to talk about your gender identity. But either way, I think them not answering it, the way they like didn't answer it, I felt like it left a lot of questions out there.
Well, also because you've been married to women. So I think people wanted to know, like, were those relationships real? Was that, you know? But also my take from actually watching it, it was that almost kind of like, no, I'm not gay. Like, oh, God forbid. I don't know. It felt like that was a criticism or something. And I'm like, what? Which I can I know a lot of trans people like, come out.
You are now gay because you are a woman. And if you only date women, you are therefore gay.
But that's why it was so funny, because out of Caitlyn's own mouth, they're like, no, I'm heterosexual. I've never been with a man. And it's like, but you just said the breath before that you are a woman. So what? Like, whatever. I know a lot of trans people have steps in coming out. They're not like, I'm trans and gay. And, you know, you don't have to have everything all figured out. But it was just kind of, you know, kind of funny. And so you talked about the Vanity Fair cover, which was coupled with this interview that she was wearing this, like, do you remember what she was wearing?
I don't know what it's called, but I remember what she was wearing. Yes.
It's like a bustier.
A bustier.
Yeah. And underwear. And I don't know if it was in this interview or if it was in another one. And this is something that also Caitlyn's been very criticized for, is she says, like, the hardest part about being a woman is deciding what to wear every morning.
Oh, no. Come on.
And women, cis women, you know, will be like, seriously? Like, it's just totally minimizing what it means to be a woman. Like, what about being afraid of, I don't know, walking out of your house or sleeping alone or, you know, like real fears and worries we have as women.
Caitlyn hasn't had the female experience for the first, 60 years of their life. So they don't know all those hardships. They haven't had to navigate it.
And it's kind of interesting because it's honestly, I see this more on kind of like conservative media, where they will criticize, if we're specifically talking about trans women in that regard, where it's like, oh, you're minimizing the experience of what it means to be a woman. And it is, but I think that also people on the left or liberals can say the same thing, where they're like, hey, that's not the hardest part about being a woman,
Yeah, no.
But I do see it more on the conservative side. And the reason that's kind of funny is that this is another quote unquote big controversy of Caitlyn Jenner, is that she's also a very staunch Republican. Mm-hmm. So, okay, what do you think about that?
The fact that they're Republican?
Yeah.
I don't think much about it. I think it is, I don't know. I think it's funny when queers are like, if you're queer, you have to be a Democrat. Like, you can't be a Republican. And it's like, I understand that the Democratic Party is more socially progressive and liberal and I would say like maybe fights for the rights of queer people, but that doesn't mean that you can't care about the issues and care about other issues and side in a different direction. Like, I think sometimes the queer community is basically like, that has to be the most important issue to you, and therefore you have to vote Democrat, even if you believe all these other things that are contrary to what Democrats believe. But that issue has to take precedence over everything else. I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I guess the part that I disagree with, regardless of if someone's gay, straight, whatever, I don't think it should be their political party should be a controversy. I always think it's funny if I'm like just doing the high level research for any of these characters. And it's like, I'll just start by Googling or like looking on chat or something. And it's like, tell me these person's controversies. And then I dig into it. And if one of the controversies comes up that it's like they voted Republican or they were like friends with a Republican, I'm like, that's not a controversy. No, I'm sorry, but that's.
But anyone in Hollywood, if they're a Republican, it's considered a controversy, which I think is like mind blowing to me.
Yeah. And I do understand how it is confusing for sure. I would say almost even more so for a trans person than a gay person to be conservative, because even within like LGBTQ rights, like gay rights, conservative people it's not all one or the other. It is still split. Like not all conservatives say gay people shouldn't be allowed to be married. But I would venture that like the majority, not all because there's always outliers, but the majority are pretty pro like not having trans rights. And I think that is confusing for people when they're like, but you are trans, like how could you support something that is actively trying to take away your own rights as well as other people in your community? Whereas Caitlyn's argument is like, I'm not exactly like you said, I'm not a single issue voter. And I'm particularly when it comes to fiscal thing, you know, like this is something that Caitlyn says and people are like, what? Like, how can you care more about taxes or money than human rights? So that's kind of the way that it's framed. I know that you obviously don't agree with that based on the look on your face.
At all. I don't agree with that at all. I also think too, it's like, I think people say that Republicans don't care about trans rights or are against trans rights. And I just don't find that to be true. I think what Republicans in general believe is that they don't want kids to be medicalized and they don't want trans people to compete in opposites, you know, like in sports. But they're not like, we don't want them to have rights. We don't
they
think
don't
that
believe transness is real.
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
That's not
major
true.
Figureheads in the conservative movement will say
people do say that, but that's not what the stance of the Republican Party is that transness isn't real.
I don't know the stance of the
and
Republican Party, but
rights.
What I've seen of big figureheads in the conservative movement say there are two sexes, two genders. I'm not like we obviously talked about this in the TERF talk. A lot of people who are TERFs tend to be more right, where they're like, they don't even acknowledge that transness is real in that sense, where they're like, no, that's just a man with a kink who's trying to invade women's spaces. So it's like,
I think some people say that for sure.
Yeah.
But that's not the mainstream Republican Party that's saying that.
Yeah. That's what I see on the internet. So
that's different than Republican senators and congressmen. So I think that's hard for people to understand, and they think like, you know, you should vote for your self-interest. But if what's most important to Caitlyn are these other self-interests that she has, you know, over her own transness, like that's not a controversy, you know?
Yeah, I think it's just more confusing. I think people don't understand it. And this is like where the kind of crux of the issue is, I would say, is that, and you see Caitlyn go back and forth about this a lot, where she's like, I can't represent everyone, every trans person, which is fair enough. Yeah. No, and by the way, like any community, whether they're marginalized or not, I don't think it's actually productive to have this kind of like monolith culture around them. Like all trans people fit into this box. And if you deviate from that box, then you're not really trans, you know? Yeah. That's not productive.
No.
And I understand you didn't sign up for this, you know? And also, you do have this huge platform. You can do so much with it. And this is what I was saying is like, I'm surprised that people are let down by her, because I'm like, what did you expect from this person? Like, she didn't exactly have a backbone before. Like, I don't know.
No.
I don't know why the expectation was so high, or if it was more of just like, oh my gosh, this huge person with so much power, so much eyeballs on them, has the courage to come out. This is huge for the trans community initially, just like having these conversations. Yeah. But then seeing what they stand for, how they vote, whatever it is, like seeing their personality. And then that's what happens is people will be like, oh, well, kind of the same way that it's like Ellen's gay, so you must all act like Ellen, right? Like it's like that, you know, people try to like lump you in with these major especially the first celebrities of their kind to kind of be out. And so I think that's where people feel really let down by her. And Caitlyn kind of goes back and forth of like, I want to be there for the trans people and like represent them and do all of this good for the community. But on the other hand, has a lot of criticisms of the LGBTQ community, some of which we've said as well, where it's like, you're really preaching this kind of like love and light and inclusivity and love is love, but then you're also super judgmental. And there's actually a lot of hate that causes division within our own community instead of unification. But I also think that part of that is, again, Caitlyn's inability to take criticism, to take accountability, to where it's like you just kind of dismiss it as, oh, you're just being hateful. And it's like, well, maybe there's some truth in what they're saying, or like, listen.
I just think that they were never really a figurehead for anything before. Like, they were an athlete.
Right.
They never really stood for anything. They were on a TV show as a kind of supporting character. Like, Bruce never really did anything besides be an athlete. And then, like, I guess give some speeches afterwards. And then people are expecting Caitlyn to be this figurehead for the trans community and trans rights. And it's like, well, they're just a conservative person who came out, essentially. And that was really disappointing to people. But like you said, it's like, I don't know what people expected from them.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, the main kind of issue, the main critique, controversy has to do with the trans part of it, of like, is this person kind of like equipped to be that figurehead for us? There was also this whole controversy around the Danish Girl movie, which was, we kind of talked about this, not about this specific movie, but we talked about it in just recently. I don't remember what episode, but where it was a cis actor that played a trans person in the Danish Girl
Eddie
movie.
Redmayne.
And a lot of people in the trans and LGBTQ community were like, this sucks. Like this, why didn't you hire either a trans actor or at least like a trans person to consult on what the we talked about this in the L Word episode.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this was a lesbian's version of the trans experience. Like, why didn't you ask a trans person what the trans experience was like for the writing and just the whole storyline? And Caitlyn was like, I thought the movie was great. And everyone was like, are you serious? Like, that's so...
It was a beautiful movie.
I never watched it, but Caitlyn, this is the sense that I get, is also partially just like, she's old. She's 75.
That's the thing that I was going to say, is like, they're just an old person. This person comes from a totally different generation. They're more conservative and just like,
why can't we, she had just kind of said like, why can't we all just be entertained? You know, like I thought it was just an entertainment thing. It was a good movie.
It was a good movie. Like, why can't I just enjoy it? Yeah.
And it is, I think, a generational difference where our generation and below
1000%.
is like, but we want it to be perfect. We want it, you know, and we talk about this. We criticize it as well, where it's like, no, don't just take scraps. We're not saying like, just take what they give you. No, like we are allowed to ask for more.
Yeah.
But also not.
I think if they made The Danish Girl now in 2025, it would be a totally different movie. They'd have they'd have chosen different actors. Like we said, 10 years ago, things were very different.
Yeah.
Especially as it relates to like all things around the trans topic and trans rights and trans in media. It was totally different. Like things have changed a lot in the last 10 years. And so I think if they made that movie now, they would have had a trans actor and all of those things would have happened.
Yeah.
But
there's more.
It really was this. I would say 2015 was the start of things really starting to change and this being a real conversation.
Gay marriage being legalized, like just in general, queerness kind of had this big, I don't want to say resurgence because it was always there, but yeah, it was like huge rising. And Caitlyn was like wanting to meet the actor, and people were like, if you go and kind of publicly endorse this movie, that's almost giving the like trans stamp of approval. Mm-hmm. And we as a trans community do not approve it.
And they're like, don't put that pressure on me to like, if I do something that means I'm speaking for the whole trans community. Like, they're kind of like, don't put that on me.
But that's where Caitlyn flip-flops, where sometimes she's like, I want to be this for people and I want to be that figurehead. But then as soon as you have that pressure from people, then she's like, it's not, you can't put it all on me. And that's where I'm like, dude, you can't have it both ways. Yeah. You know, you can say, I don't want to be a figurehead and I'm not going to speak for trans people. I'm just going to live my life and live my truth and then do that. But don't say you want it. And then once you have it, complain about what it entails.
Yeah.
That's what I think. So, I mean, I think it probably goes without saying that when it comes to trans people in sports, which I think is interesting considering, like you said, Bruce was an athlete, that initially I thought that Caitlyn just didn't think trans people belonged in cis sports, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's actually not what she thinks. She thinks that trans women, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, trans women don't belong in women's sports because of the biological disadvantage, because men tend to have more physical strength, biological men. And if they transition to women, it's like they are going to have this advantage. Whereas Caitlyn believes that trans men, fine, you want to compete in men's sports, like, because you don't have the advantage. And the whole kind of basis of her argument is sports should be fair. And this biological difference creates unfairness. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Obviously, she gets a lot of pushback for that. And
I think a lot of people would agree with that, though.
Of course,
I'm sure she's going to get a lot of pushback, but I bet a lot of people agree with that.
Of course, a lot of people agree with that. It's just not a lot of, I would say, queer people agree with that. So it comes back to that, like, you can't speak for all of us. And just because you're an Olympian and a trans person, it gives you even more authority. So people are like, cool, now you're reinforcing this, you know, and how do you make this rule like, oh, you can go here, but not you there? It's just, it's very messy. You're never going to please everybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the kind of, there's one major controversy that I did skip over that has nothing to do with any of this, which is that Bruce Jenner, when they were still Bruce Jenner, had a fatal car crash where they killed someone. It was an accident, but yeah, they killed someone. And, you know, like they ended up settling it. He didn't go to jail or anything like that. And it was a total accident. It's not like he was drunk. You know, there was nothing nefarious happening, but this is something that people do like to throw in Caitlyn's face of like, whatever, you're a murderer, you know? So it's something that does come up. It does come up, and it is worth mentioning.
How long ago was that?
It was in 2015. So
that's just 10 years ago?
Yeah.
What, they were already Caitlyn at that point?
I don't know if it was before they were I think it was still when they were Bruce.
Wow.
So yeah, it is just another thing in there.
That's horrific.
Very horrific. And kind of similarly to what we talked about before, even with his own, when it was Bruce's brother's death, of that kind of like, well, you know, wasn't my fault. And the way that it has been kind of written or spoken about, even though it has been very brief, is, again, most people, even if it is a total accident, if you accidentally kill someone, like,
that would haunt me for the
forever,
rest of my life.
Forever.
Yeah.
And who knows whether Caitlyn is being tight-lipped because of legal who knows? But people perceive it as that same kind of lack of empathy, cold, like, what? It doesn't seem like you care.
Yeah,
you know? So that's Caitlyn.
There's a lot in there.
There's a lot in there.
They've been through a lot.
So much. So much. Like, such a full life. One other thing I do want to say.
What?
Because I was like, because Caitlyn has still never said, like, I'm gay. I was like, do I label this WLW lore? You know?
I don't know.
Because do you remember what WLW even means, honey?
No.
It's not Women Love Wednesdays. It's Women Love Women. And Caitlyn, you know, so it's like another way to say a gay girl. Not everyone who's WLW is a lesbian. Has she dated
anyone publicly? Like, is there...
Yeah.
Do we know if she's dating men or women?
That's why I was like, should I just call it lore? But she's had this kind of assumed relationship with a much younger woman. Her name was Sophia. I forget the last name. Sophia Hutchins, who was also actually a trans woman. Okay. And she was Caitlyn's manager and rumored lover for a very long time. They were very, very close. And she tragically died in an ATV accident just a few months ago in July 2025.
And that's supposed to be Caitlyn's partner of the last 8 to 10 years?
Yeah, like a long time. But nobody's ever confirmed it. So it's like neither Sophia nor Caitlyn have ever confirmed it. And even after her passing, Caitlyn never. So it's like,
oh my God. It
just felt even weirder to almost include, like, I don't want to speculate on someone who isn't here, but
that's sad.
But that is another, you know, her accident had nothing to do with Caitlyn. So it's not like a controversy of Caitlyn's. But other than that, I think there was just kind of like rumors of her being with people, but everyone just assumed that her and Sophia were together. So,
wow. Oh my goodness, that's so sad.
So yeah, who's the problem? You got a Caitlyn Jenner version of who's the problem?
Well, I have one, yeah.
Okay.
So, Caitlyn versus Kris.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Caitlyn is rumored to be worth like $20 to $30 million, whereas like Kris Jenner is rumored to be worth more than 200 million. And I'm honestly
thought it was
surprised
$1 billion.
It's not more like 500 million.
Yeah.
And
only 20 mil. That's chump change.
I mean, but they have a Malibu house. So that's probably like 5 to 10 of it. Like that's actually kind of crazy that they're not worth more than 20 million.
Right. For everything that
they've accomplished and whatnot. And then for Kris to be worth 10 to 20 times them. So my question is like, if Bruce was what essentially made Kris Jenner rich, like turned her into the momager that she is and the creating of the Keeping Up with the Kardashians. And like you talked about this in the show of like, Kris had control of the money, had the bank accounts, had everything. Like they got divorced and now like Kris is worth like 20 times more than Caitlyn. Like who's the problem? Like how did that even happen? And like should Caitlyn be worth more like for creating Kris Jenner?
I don't know. It's like, well, she didn't create Kris Jenner. Kris Jenner used Bruce's name to create Kris Jenner.
But then Kris created this machine around Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and somehow Bruce/Caitlyn didn't really get anything from that.
But my question is, why didn't you fucking fight for it? Like nobody forced you to be passive.
Yeah.
The same way that nobody forced Kris to then hustle and be this momager and like go above and beyond. These are all your own choices. So it's like it was built off the back of your name in Hollywood.
But Kris turned it into what it is.
Yeah, I feel like you got complacent. Nobody made you.
Yeah, I think the biggest argument for Kris is that like everything really took off after they got divorced. And all like the kids really took off and she's taking cuts from all of her kids.
Yeah.
And so like that's really when she made the most of her money was after they got divorced. And Caitlyn was off kind of just chilling in Malibu at that point.
Yeah. So Caitlyn, and we just watched this most recent episode of The Kardashians on Hulu, like the most recent, because Caitlyn comes back and she even makes a comment because they're selling the house. That was the house where everything was filmed with the Kardashians. They're selling it. So they all come back to say goodbye. And Caitlyn and Kris was like, oh, you want to buy it? And Caitlyn's like, I can't afford that. You know, it like made a few comments about like, I can't afford this lifestyle anymore. Yeah. And it was like, I just don't feel bad for you. I'm sorry. You still have $20 million. First of all, you had every bit of opportunity, if not more. You were a freaking white man in Hollywood. Like you had more opportunity and more privilege. You could have gone the Kris Jenner route and you chose not to.
Kris hustled.
Yeah. So I don't know.
And sold out all her kids, you know, for billions.
Another thing, Caitlyn wore white to Brody's wedding. Just a fun fact as the, you know, mother of the groom. So she's just kind of that bitch, you know? You're like, what? That's
weird.
But yeah, I mean, my who's the problem is kind of similar where it's like, I guess I just want to know people, are you team Jenner or team Kardashian when it comes to this? Like, do you think that, like you said, it's not just as much about the net worth, but it's like, do you think that the Kardashians would be what they are if Bruce Jenner hadn't done his thing at the Olympics? Or do you think that Kris would have found someone else to kind of latch onto and do the same machine
I think she would have figured it out no matter what. Like, I think she would have. I mean, the argument that I've heard is that basically, like, Kris Jenner could have married anyone she wanted.
That's what I'm saying.
She was going to attach herself to some star power.
She's going to make it happen.
Yeah, and she's going to pimp and whore out her kids to become rich no matter what.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I want to hear from you guys and see what you think. If you're team Kardashian, team Jenner, and just overall what you think of the Caitlyn episode. We love ya.
We love it.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.